podcast, Dig Deep podcast number 15 with the one and only Nicole DeBoom from Skirt Sports. Oh yeah, excited, baby. I'm gonna do a little dance.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Nicole DeBoom, thank you very much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And it's right next door to my actual store, so this was very convenient.
I was going to say, for people who are not watching, our listeners, we're doing the interviews at the Boulder Running Company. Thanks, BRC, for letting me use your amazing store to do my interviews. And you're right, we are in the same kind of shopping mall, strip mall, within walking distance to your store.
I know. How cool.
It's awesome. By the way, tell me, when did you open it?
When did I open the store? Okay.
Yeah, the brick and mortar.
Yeah, so Skirt Sports has been around since 2004.
Yeah, of course.
But we didn't open a retail store till 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's a big step. This is really cool because it's like an indication that, okay, taking it to the next level. I mean, the fact that, it's not cheap to pay for, I guess, to rent. Are you guys renting?
Yeah. Because everything changes. You don't want to necessarily make too many permanent moves in the apparel business these days.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. But I wanted to kick off this conversation by telling you how I met Tim, your husband, which, by the way, for people who don't know who Tim is, so two-time Hawaiian Ironman champion. He won 2001, 2002. Badass. He almost won 2003. He had to pass a kidney stone.
Had to pass that little thing.
It's just awesome.
No big deal.
Every time I watch those videos, I'm like, anyway. But, okay, so this is how it happened. I'm a big fan geek, and so I go to Rally Sports, which is our gym here in Boulder, and I'm getting ready to go for a swim, and then Tim comes in, and again, I'm a geek. I'm Tim DeBoom in my mind, right? So, and I approach him, and I, of course, introduce myself because I have no problem, to introducing myself or telling you, that I'm so happy to meet you. Anyway, I'm like, Tim DeBoom, it's nice meeting you. This is me, blah, blah, blah. I'm a big fan, all that. And then I ask him for a photo, or I get a selfie. So there's this selfie of the two of us in the locker room. I'm glad that there's no naked,
Wait, were you naked?
No, I was not.
Was Tim naked?
Tim was not. That would have been too much. I'm not too bad, but there's
wait. Tim told me about this one day that he was in the Rally Sport locker room, and this guy came in and said, "Can I take your picture in the locker room?" I got to tell you though, I meet so many friends and new people naked in the Rally Sport locker room. I've had a few on the podcast who I actually met naked in the Rally Sport locker room.
Oh, really?
So, hey, that's the place to be if you want to meet people who are interesting, I guess.
Oh my God, no, I feel bad because I'm really, I'm a really passionate person about the things that I like. And so I hope that passion didn't translate into the stalker.
Don't worry. It did not. You're all good. He's been through way worse. Okay.
Because there was another time that sometimes I do video vlogs. And I went to one of the local triathlons here. Thank you. One of the local triathlons, the Boulder Sunset Peak. I can't remember. And I saw him again, and I made him part of my video blog, and he was so nice. And I had, I think, a little interaction with Wilder, your daughter. So it was really cute. So I'll send you the link when I find the.
Do you know what race it was?
Yeah, it was. I think
it was the race I did last year, the Boulder Peak Triathlon. Oh,
you're right.
Because I hadn't done an Olympic in 10 years.
You're right.
And so I decided last year I would do it because we don't go hang out at the races very much anymore. Yeah. So the fact that they were both there was to support me. Yeah, so it's all coming together now, isn't
awesome. It's great. So I want to talk about all things Skirt Sports and, of course, triathlon. But first I wanted to ask you to tell us more about, growing up. I know you're from Illinois. I lived in Bloomington, Indiana for a couple of years. So, Illinois, Chicago was really close. But talk more about growing up there and how did you get into all things swimming? In school days and college days, and I know you went to Princeton. Awesome. I'm just curious to learn about that background before we switch into all things triathlon and skirt sports.
Totally. And I actually went to Yale.
Oh, Yale. Did I say Princeton? Okay, well.
That's because you got Claire Gallagher on the brain because she's so awesome.
Claire, if you're listening to this podcast,
I had a great interview with Claire on my podcast. We need to get her on yours next.
Well, I was just going to say she's amazing, but she's been so busy that I've been reaching out to her like forever, so it'll happen. Anyway.
I actually have heard from certain men after listening to that podcast that they've developed a small crush on Claire Gallagher.
She's
so
such a badass, and I love all things.
She's awesome. She's passionate.
More than just her running journey is how passionate she is for all things environmental.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting because we're doing this podcast, and I'm your guest, but I just have a feeling we're going to talk a lot about other people because the truth is, like, that's what I do now. Right? It's about lifting and elevating everybody else around us because it just helps lift and elevate us too. And it's a great way to live. Right?
Yeah, I could not agree more. I love that you say that because I can see that that's a core part of what you do with skirt sports, and that it's something that as a, I guess, newer entrepreneur, I'm trying to do with Dig Deep. Because when I first started the business, I was like, okay, I want to sell stuff and going to launch, T-shirts and hats, and I want to sell. But then it's just this evolution about, hey, you really need to focus on people, improving people's lives. And by doing that, really, that's when your business starts growing and start doing better. It's like when you stop trying hard, it's like when things start happening. Sorry.
Well, no, I get it. I mean, truly, like, this is a bigger maybe culmination of a lot of life experiences to reach a point where you've got enough maturity to stop being so self-centered and to focus on doing things without the hope that you'll get something in return.
Exactly.
And when you finally let go of that, it doesn't matter if you get anything in return.
Agree.
So if you do, great. If you don't, great. It doesn't matter because you're living from your heart. I know. And that takes...
You're living from your heart.
It does. It takes a long time to get there. So like you ask about my background. Yeah, I grew up in Chicagoland, suburbs, Downers Grove. Funny, my old high school track coach contacted me the other day. He's an awesome guy. His name's Mike Ehrenberg. If he's listening, he became a triathlete and he's into like ultra cycling now.
Cycling.
Yeah, I mean, he's no longer like 40 like he probably was when he was coaching me. I don't know how old you are out there, coach, but he said, "Hey, I'm back at Downer South, and I sometimes swing over by the pool, and I still see your name on the record boards."
Sweet.
That is so cool, but it's kind of a bad thing. We need you young women at Downer South to get your move on here and break some of those old records from the 80s.
Right.
But yeah, I became a very fast swimmer very young. And I think when you're good at something, you like it.
Yeah.
Not always, but a lot of the time. And that's why I ended up really focusing on swimming. So by the time I was 16, I swam in the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
1988 trials.
Yeah, nice.
I know. I was like this little twig, like, here I am, here's my legs, and I was really fast, and it happened so quickly that, my body was still catching up to me. Yeah. And this happens a lot with women swimmers too. We get fast right before we hit puberty. And then your body changes, and some women weather that storm perfectly. And for some women, the way your body's changed and the balance of your body and the new curves or whatever. I mean, I didn't get very curvy, but I hit puberty and I never swam faster.
It's interesting that you said that. One of my previous conversations with Coach Brett Hudson, Brett? Mm-hmm. He talks about the time he ran his first marathon, and I think it was when he was 11 or 12. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he said that in theory, or what research that he has, done, or I guess heard, is that the ideal age to run probably your fastest marathon is when you are like a teenager. So I thought it was funny. It's like apparently, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years old is when you probably hit, you have the ideal conditions to be, the fast.
But no one knows because nobody gets into it that
young.
Because we're all questioning like the long-term health ramifications of putting those miles into your body really young.
Oh, I agree. It's like when I don't know, this is just my personal take. When I see running dads who make their sons run ultras at super young age, I'm like, what is going on? And for me, I don't know, I see that on social media when all the runners celebrate that. I'm like, well, but this kid or girl is still developing. But anyway, that's a different topic.
I know it is. And but again, it comes to that whole point of, do you love it? And if those kids are like, please, mommy, please let me run the marathon, and they're like 12, like, what are you going to say as a mom? Yeah. No, you can't. Yeah. I mean, maybe you say that, or you give them a different, I don't know, challenge. Yeah. But I've researched this a little bit, and there aren't a ton of studies that totally prove one way or another that it can hurt you, hurt your bone structure or whatever, but it doesn't mean it's not. There's just not a lot of research or knowledge.
Awesome.
Right. I know, it's crazy. But yeah, once I became that national level swimmer, I got recruited to colleges and had a blast on my recruiting trips and started to explore, the other outlets that serious hardcore people need in order to balance their lives. So I sort of started to party a little bit. Ended up going to Yale University because I was like an A, just a type A person in everything, right? All in swimming, all in school, all in social life, all in fun, you name it. When I through college, I just had, everybody has their own unique experience, but it was a college experience. I had my full liberation. I played and had fun and somehow graduated with like a B average, even though I skipped a lot of classes. And I would consider myself maybe more of an athlete than a student at that time. Mm-hmm. But I graduated from Yale in 1994 and I had a BA in sociology. Okay. And no idea what I wanted to do. Yeah. That happens. It does happen. So I kind of had that post-college slump where I went home and managed a pool and started waiting tables and I kind of started to get a little despondent, much like I kind of feel sometimes today with all the freaking gun violence out there, which is a whole nother topic because we had another episode yesterday. Freaking killing me. Okay, so let's move on from that for a moment. But these feelings of despondency, that's not a normal thing for me because I don't suffer from depression or anxiety clinically, but I was experiencing this sort of lack of purpose getting out of bed. And I told my mom, and she said, I think you should go see a social worker because that's what there were, So I went to a woman who was really great. And she said, I think these are very normal. You don't have you don't feel like you have a purpose because you don't have a purpose right now. And you're in a discovery phase. And maybe one thing that could help you figure out what your next step might be is to go home and write down all the times in your life when you felt the most alive. Okay. Like happiest and most alive. And I start writing down these things. And I don't remember what they were. But what I do remember is a theme came out of it. And it was that when I felt the best, I was also very fit in my body. Mm-hmm. And I realized way back then, this sort of mantra that has become kind of a founding principle for what I want to do in my life. And it was that when my body is fit and strong, my mind is fitter and stronger too. Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more.
It's amazing. Yeah. So that I said, all right, well, guess what? I'm going to go explore some more athletic stuff because there is no like clear-cut professional path. I'm not going to be an investment banker on Wall Street like some of my friends already went and did. Mm-hmm. So I moved to the mecca of triathlon in the world at that time, which was San Diego. Yeah. Not Boulder. Now it's Boulder. Yeah, of course. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to go find out where they all trained. So I went and swam Masters with Greg Welch and Mark Allen and whoever was out there at the time. And I was just this young 23-year-old. And people were really nice to me. Yeah. They were awesome. But what's fun about my story is like my mind was just open to experiences happening. Mm-hmm. And there are days when you walk down the street and you're closed. your mind is closed and things do not appear to you. They may be there. You're just not open to receiving them.
Exactly.
So I was open at that time. And while I was having fun and pursuing triathlon, I qualified for our world's team in the 20 to 24 age group.
Got it.
By being...
When you say worlds is ITU?
Yeah, it was short course, but they didn't draft. We didn't draft at that time.
Okay.
Not for the age groupers. I don't know if they do now. But it was in Cancun, Mexico. And I actually was 13th and they take 12.
Oh, wow.
And strangely, like I didn't know anything about drafting, but I had gotten a drafting penalty and I was like, what's that even mean? And now I'm 13th and I want to do this thing in Cancun. So anyway, someone didn't go, so I got the slot. How cool. So then you get into this like whole sort of the way I met Tim has a lot of like fun signs associated or things that had to happen in order for us to come together. So someone had to not take their slot. Yeah. So I got to go.
Yeah.
And Tim was in the middle of his very first pro racing year.
Oh, nice.
He was 25.
Okay. Was he living in Colorado
24
already?
He was.
Okay.
He was up in Boulder. He's from Iowa, but he was in Boulder in the summers, and then he went to Tucson in the winters.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of like what they did, and they probably still do, don't they?
Well, it's funny. That period of time, the early 2000s, is probably my favorite era of triathlon. Like Tim and Peter Reed. Those years, Lori Bowden.
And they all did that kind of those training migrations.
Yeah, they would go to Arizona. Was it Flagstaff maybe?
Or they went to Tucson.
Oh, Tucson. Sorry. Yeah. Norman Stadler.
And they would train together.
Yeah.
And then they would race each other hard.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was really cool.
Like they were like almost best friends, but then that relationship kind of deteriorated because of the competitiveness and
but it comes back around.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to meeting Tim, but Peter Reed is also one of the greats of all time in triathlon, and his marriage to Lori, that was also just like so crazy and dramatic the way everything happened and turned out. But Peter has found a new life.
Yeah.
And we're not in touch with Lori. I don't know what happened to her.
Yeah.
But Peter is a bush pilot.
Yep.
It's amazing in Canada. And I don't think they're married, or maybe they'll never get married, but his woman, his partner is Simon Whitfield's old partner.
What?
Yeah. She's amazing. Her name's Malika. She's awesome. She's like an archaeologist, she goes down to volcanoes.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Geologist, I think. And they have a kid.
Awesome.
And his name is Weymouth. And they have stayed with us, and he is less than a year older than Wilder, and those two are so cute together.
Yeah.
I mean, funny, and they fight a little, and then they hang a little, and we gotta keep that relationship going. But it's fun when you see that next generation of a mini me.
Yeah, exactly.
And you go, wow, I can't believe it. I know. So if we go back to 1995 when I met Tim, I qualified for the team. He had broken his back earlier that year.
Oh, wow.
He'd been hit by a car in Tucson and had come back just in time to do the Chicago Triathlon. It was Mrs. T's Pierogi's triathlon at the time. And it was the qualifier for Worlds. Okay. One race was qualifier. So he made the Worlds team.
Oh, nice.
So what happened is I got on a plane to like Houston, and somehow most of Team USA was like getting on the plane from Houston to Cancun. It was like a lot of people had the same itinerary, right? So I remember walking down on the plane and I look at my seat and someone was in it, and I don't really care, but I was like, I think that's my seat. She was kind of like, oh, fine. She moves. So boom, first thing that had to happen. I got that seat, right? Yeah. Next thing, all these really attractive, good-looking people are walking down the aisle, and I'm thinking, this is the sport to be in because there's fitness and robust nature, and everybody's just glowing with energy, Not to mention, like, I don't know. Anyway, the two cutest guys were walking on the plane, and one of them far cuter than the other, clearly. And they kind of looked the same.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, that guy, the seat next to me is still open. That guy's going to sit next to me. And now I look back and I say, I did something that I call willing it to happen, which I have used in my business since. But
I mean, you're talking about thinking something to attract it. Yeah, it happens.
I was like, you will sit by me. You will sit by me.
That's awesome.
I mean, of course, he's already got his ticket with the number on it, but I felt like I willed it to happen. And sure enough, they come down to my row, and the first guy looks, and he sits on the other side, and then the cute guy I wanted sits right next to me.
I love it.
And
awesome.
I asked him, you going to this race in Cancun? Of course he's going to the race. He was pretty shy, but we connected, and that was it. I mean, we got together in Cancun kind of in a fun, flirty way, which, is what happens. And afterward, what's really cool is there were no cell phones yet.
Yeah.
And so I was in San Diego. He's in Tucson. So it was like, what's your address? Yeah. And what's your phone number? And I hope you're home when I call. This is how it had to be, right? You can't just find people. And he sent me a postcard, and he said, I think I'm coming out to San Diego to do some sponsor dealings. And can I see you? And I was like, sure. Do you want to stay with me? And what's really funny is he stayed for 3 nights and totally just sort of fell in love on that trip.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But he never saw a sponsor. So I think that was his out. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to say I'm going to go see a sponsor. But no, he didn't go see about any sponsors. He saw about a girl.
You just reminded me of something that I did when I first met my wife. So me married for a little over 10 years. I met her in business school in Indiana. She's from Arkansas. So I'm from Peru. So growing up in Peru, I used to think that, okay, got to come to the U.S. because, I want a better future, all kinds of things. And I thought that I wanted to work for corporate. So that was my goal. Get an MBA, work in marketing, work for big companies. So that was the path. And so I meet this girl, and I was actually in my second year because she was a first year MBA when I was second year. So we go on this. It was not a blind date. It was like my roommate. He told me, hey, one of my friends has told me about Amy, this girl that she thinks I should meet her. Do you want to go with me? And I'm like, sure, yeah, let's do it. And then in the end, Amy and I, we just started talking, for hours. And so that's how I thought, okay, she's interesting. But what I was going to say is, there was this party 2 weeks later, this toga party. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm from Peru, like I feel weird wearing a toga. It's like a very American thing. So I'm like,
it's not very American.
Oh, okay.
It's like Greek. It's like a Grecian thing or something.
And I was like, I don't want to go to party semi-naked. And I thought, I'm going to ask Amy if she wants to go to that party or she wants to hang out instead. So that was kind of the plan. And I say, hey, I'm not planning to go to this party. Would you like to hang out instead? And she's like, yep. And, since then, started dating. And yeah, it was awesome. It's an awesome path. But I was going to say with Tim, when Tony, his brother, started coaching me. So he coached me to help me do I've done 3 full Ironmans, all in Louisville.
Awesome.
And which, by the way.
Congrats.
Thank you. I think of Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin used to be a week after Ironman Louisville, which is when it used to be, I think it used to be hosted in August, but now I think it's back in October. Anyway, and when I asked Tony, I need a set of aero wheels and aero bar because I used to have this very awful time trial bike, and so
we all had those.
And reach out to Tim, and he gave me like this amazing deal for SIP wheels and aero bars. So
you did business dealings through us?
Well, through Tony. I'm like, Tony, I need a.
Tony was the middleman. I wonder how much he took.
But I remember it's amazing price, and when I ended up selling it or reselling on Craigslist 2-3 years later, I pretty much broke even.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is it. It's like the full cycle, right? Full circle. I mean, it comes together.
Yeah.
And it's about like for someone like Tim, you got him at a good time because, when you're done, you're done. It's time to move on. I'm sure he was done racing by then. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So he's actually selling a bunch more stuff right now. If you want to hop over to Craigslist.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny. I reached out to him once. I think it was last year because I DNF Ironman Boulder. I had a bike crash. It was not too bad. It was a silly crash, but I got my aero bar destroyed, and I asked Tony, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you ask him?" And so
to coach him, to coach you, or
yeah, I should have. No, sorry, it was it's completely random. I was looking for a used aero bar, so I was like, okay, where can I get a good aero bar that doesn't cost me the $500?
Oh, I know.
So
everything costs so much money.
But he didn't have one. He's like, no, I'm sorry, I have a bunch of mountain biking stuff if you want, but I don't have a lot of.
You're like, I'm not into mountain biking yet.
I'm not into So
Oh, that's funny.
One of the things that I remember the most, my favorite thing about how you started Scare Sports is two things really. One is this, and maybe you can talk in more detail, is this day that you went on a training run and then you stopped and you look at yourself through the mirror of a store, and that's when, what do you think back then? Can you give a little background? Because this is the origins of your idea to start Scare Sports.
Yeah. Well, after I met Tim, I started racing as a pro.
Yep.
Eventually. It took me a while. I sat on his wheel and worked really hard for a long time.
Yeah.
I would be crying back there sometimes, and he'd look back and he'd be like, how you doing? I'd be like, I'm okay. It's that whole like, smile it out, man. Yeah. But, he really helped me get strong.
Yeah.
And he was always amazing as a training partner for me.
Yeah.
But when I started racing pro, I could have or couldn't have. It didn't really matter. It's not like I was like Tim and won the overall world championship as a 24-year-old by 2 minutes or something. I was like third in my age group at nationals.
Yep.
I had enough stats to get a pro card. But when I decided to turn pro, I was like, Tim, how am I going to like race with McKeely Jones and these other women who are incredible? And they were in my first race I did. And he said, you're just gonna race better. You're going to level up to their level.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I did. Yeah. And my interesting kind of claim to fame with my racing career is that I was in the money in every race I ever did until my final race. And then it was time. I had already started my company and it was time.
Yeah.
But isn't that cool? And by being in the money, I think in one race I won $50 swim preem, so I counted it. And in Hawaii, I was 12th, 13th, 15th. I never earned cash, but I earned my slot back because they let you earn it then. Yep. And I was like, all right, that counts because that's like $500 or whatever,
exactly,
or maybe more now. So when I was racing as a pro, I was someone who believed in the whole look good, feel good, perform better concept. And I had people I watched like the Williams sisters in tennis. I mean, they were not afraid to put themselves out there, and like their fashion gave them confidence. Yeah. It was like this fun factor that kind of created a cool energy. And I thought, so that was always in the back of my mind because the things that I was wearing at the time in the early 2000s were very unisex, not cute. They didn't fit women's bodies very well. Yeah. We had to like jimmy things or like use more lube because we'd get chafing because nobody was thinking about our bodies and where the seams need to go and all of that. So all of these things kind of swirled around in my mind, combined with the fact that I had seen what Tim had given to be the best in the world, the sacrifice needed. Mm-hmm. And I knew I did not want to give that level of sacrifice to triathlon. Mm-hmm. Our marriage was hanging on by a thread at times. Like he sacrificed so much. Yep. And I loved what I did, but if I had to take it to that level, I probably, who knows if I ever would have been that good. Yep. Maybe I already hit as good as I could get, but I just wasn't willing to do it.
Self-awareness. Interesting. Yeah.
But I did think maybe I had that level of sacrifice to give for something. Yeah. But it wasn't going to be sort of a self-centered pursuit like triathlon is, So one day it was December of 2003.
Okay.
Okay, going back in time, and we lived in Lyons at the time.
Yeah, nice place. Yeah.
Beautiful. But I'm out slogging around on a training run that was very uninspired. I had been like in the off season, eating too much, drinking, and you're kind of just, you put on a little weight because you need to take the weight back off, but you need to give your body that time to rest and recover. But those runs just suck. And I remember I'm out there and I'm running down Main Street, and there was this big, huge storefront window with the Lions soda fountain. Okay. It was like one of those picture windows or whatever. And I remember running by, and I would always glance at my reflection in the big windows and then pretend I was like looking at what was inside the window. So it didn't look like I was looking at myself. That's awesome. And that day I was like, oh my gosh, I look like a boy. Yeah. First of all. I've got like a beanie on that's like makes my head look like a peanut, and I'm in all black, and it was a RLX product for training. It was men's, or it was extra small. It didn't fit right. And I thought, I am very uninspired. Do you think maybe I could do something to change this? And like this light bulb went off that was like, if we're talking about what I'm wearing, and if what I'm wearing can change the way I feel or increase my motivation to get out there on days when I don't feel great, why can't I do that? Yeah, that's one of the things I think is the coolest, is that you found a problem and you just didn't wait for somebody else to do it. At least you started thinking, hey, maybe I can do it, Well, and it's a big thing. Of course. And all the great products come when you're solving a problem. Exactly. And you have a personal need for them. Because then the passion's there. Yeah, it's not just like, oh, there's a business idea I'm going to pursue for money. Yeah. Because then I wouldn't have done this. I couldn't agree more. You have to have the passion. Yeah. Because that's what gets you going during the days when, things are not going your way, the days you're not selling anything. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. You have to see in your mind that it will succeed. Right. So yeah, it's like, I'm going to start a clothing company. Love it. But how do you do that, right? I remember telling Tim, and he's like, okay, how are you exactly going to do that? And I said, well, you're wearing clothing and I'm wearing clothing, and I see a lot of people wearing clothing. So somebody figured it out. So I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. And fortunately, Tim had like custom compression shorts before compression shorts were a thing. Oh, okay. He had them custom made by a factory. So through a sponsor. So there were tags. Okay. So I contact the factory. And then someone says, why don't you go learn about fabrics? So I go to the outdoor retailer trade show and I start feeling fabrics and go, I want this, I want that. And it's just this, my mind like exploded because I hadn't used it in that way since college, basically. Right. And I was learning so much every day, and it just fueled me. It was so cool. But it was along this this time, so in early then 2004, I'm figuring this out, and I realized that I want to start a women's like active wear brand, but let's focus on one thing that no one's ever done. So I focused on the running skirt. And I had some prototypes made, and I sent them out around the country. And then there was this one special prototype that actually Barry Siff's wife, do you know Barry from USA Triathlon? Yeah, of course. His wife Jody also dabbled in like seamstress work. So she made my first skirt, and I decided that while I was still fit, I would do another Ironman in my career. So I signed up for the 2004 Ironman Wisconsin and decided that if the race was going well, I would wear that skirt during the race, and that would help me decide if I was going to do this. Wow. So, okay, you end up winning the race. Congratulations. I did. So would you say that the skirt helped you during the marathon? Oh, yeah, for sure. Because the alternative, what I was going to wear was just a one-piece swimsuit. Yes. Right? Yes. Because it was getting hot. It was in the 90s. Uh-huh. And when I put on that little like race belt skirt with fabric tied on, sewn onto a race belt, basically, it changed. It excited me. I was like, I'm doing something kind of crazy. You know, it's really not crazy. But at the time, it felt kind of crazy. No one had seen something like this. Yeah. And every aid station I went by, people screamed louder. They supported more. they saw that there was something different. The second loop, they started calling me the skirt.
Oh, wow.
Instead of go like second woman or whatever, it was go skirt. And it just felt like this sort of transformation on the race course.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you know, when you dump water on your head, you're like, you've hit the point of like needing instant gratification because you know it's going to go straight to your shoes.
Yes,
but that 1 second on your head feels good and you've hit desperation. And I finally hit that point and I dumped the water on my head like halfway through and it never hit my shoes. Because it hit the skirt and then it rolled through the skirt and then it just tapped and swished along my thighs. Like it literally worked. It didn't just figuratively work.
Because when water hits your shoes, you get blisters, right?
Oh, and that squishing noise and they're heavy and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I remember because it's funny. I was thinking about the last time I did Ironman. It was Ironman Louisville 2013. And there's a section where you can it's called the special needs section, special needs bag, and I dropped a pair of taller socks because I was thinking maybe I should just bring a pair of taller socks, and that, I changed my socks, I wore the taller socks, and that thing really helped me because it was so hot. I was just splashing myself with water the whole run.
Totally.
And I was like, I'm just but it really helped. So and so you won Wisconsin 2004, and then you basically started officially like 3 days later, something like that.
Yes, I actually incorporated.
That's what I was going to say.
So it's September 15th of 2004. I incorporated Skirt Sports Inc.
Yeah.
Yep.
Talk about the early days of the company. I'm curious about what were the products that you initially offer. I'm thinking just focusing on the skirt, maybe. Who were your initial customers, and one of the things I love about skirt sports is the target audience. The people that you target is just real women. And I don't know how you can probably describe it better, but like when I see your customers, the people who wear your products versus other brands or what other brands project or the image they project, it's like, dude, you just need to focus on just being as real as possible. So did you always focus on that type of customer?
I didn't. I didn't know what to focus on.
Yeah.
There was no focus.
I love it.
It was like...
And just, make us...
No, and I know as like you being in the apparel world, like you've started way more recently than me. So the world and the way people shop is already so different.
I agree.
So it was like all I could do... I think about it like a marathon, right? There's an end line. It's way down there, but you can't focus on it because you will just give up.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So it's like miles 1, 2, and 3. So you're kind of working on miles 1, 2, and 3 all the time, right? Or 4, 5, and you're just sort of rolling down. So when mile 1 hits, you can look ahead and be like, okay, I think I'm still on track for mile 3, or do I need to change course, or am I off course?
Yep.
So what I did to launch is I had created 5 styles of skirts.
Okay.
If you go to Skirt Sports, there's this like just little line sheet on the wall, and that's what our first year was.
Cool.
It's like a little sketch of a few styles. And there were 2 running styles, a triathlon style, the party girl, and the school girl.
Okay.
Okay. So it was like, okay, from athletic to casual. Let's see. And we had no idea. I ordered the same amount of everything, right? And what sold very quickly, almost immediately, within months sold out, were the fitness styles.
And where did you start selling your products? Because internet did not,
it's cool. The internet didn't really exist. Yeah. And there was this big kind of chasm between you either sold into stores or you might experiment on this website, World Wide Web thing with a website. So we started at a time where we could kind of do both.
Okay.
But I didn't even think about that. I just took all my skirts to an expo and sold them.
Yeah.
So we started in... the first expo we ever went to was February of 2005, and it was the Austin Marathon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was awesome. We did a photo shoot while we were there. We ran into Sandra Bullock. I gave her skirts. Yeah. I'm sure, Sandra, you probably wear them all the time.
I saw your last movie, Sandra. It was awesome.
Sandra, we love you. I've seen all her movies. Okay, Trump you. So that was fun. But like, what really was cool is we sold hundreds of skirts.
Yeah.
And people didn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
They just saw this fun energy that we had at our booth, and they were like, "Are you on a tennis team? Are you going to party? I don't know, but I have to have what you're having."
Yeah.
And then they did the cardinal rule of what you're not supposed to do, and they wore them in the marathon, and they were great.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there were a lot of issues with the first season or two.
Because it's the days before the race. Yeah.
Yeah, you never buy something the day before, wear it in a marathon. Yeah. And they had a lot of sweat marks and there were whatever, but they were so psyched because they just felt cool. It added that energy.
Yeah. And
we came home, we were like, all right, we're on to something. We're doing it. And we started with an online store.
Okay.
So my phone number, my cell phone number was on the hang tags.
I love it.
And the website.
Yeah.
And people would call, and I would pull over in the car and answer, and then we'd go home and fill an order or two.
Yeah.
But then in May, we got this hit in Runner's World, a PR hit, and it said, "Tough girls wear skirts."
Oh, wow.
And it was this really awesome, sexy kind of picture of just the skirt on lower half of a woman, and it sold out that style of skirt within a week or two.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that just sold 1,200.
Wow.
I got to buy more.
Right.
When can I get them?
Yeah.
And then I started learning business.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it went from there. I mean, our first year of business, I look back on it and I'm like, we were impressive. We did over $300,000 in our first year of business.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't even have a website until April. So it wasn't like a full.
Yeah.
And it was just skirts,
Yeah.
So what happened to us, though, is by year number 2, we were copied. Okay. So there were 5 companies.
Yeah.
Nike.
Wow.
We can compete, right?
Right.
Nike, New Balance, Moving Comfort, and somebody else. And a knockoff or two, companies that were trying to pretend they were us. So
yeah.
That's when you really just start learning the ins and outs of business and making decisions that are the best business decisions, not the best emotional decisions.
Yeah, I agree. So, and again, when I see the brand as of course I don't buy your products, but
well, you could. We got some dudes who love our stuff. We actually do. That's a whole nother topic of gender fluidity.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's just men who are I just like the comfort, and this is how I express myself.
Yeah.
And they're not gay or cross-dressers. They just like running in a skirt. That's not a huge customer base of ours, but we're just open. We don't care.
Yeah.
Just don't make fun of it. Don't be a guy who's I'm going to wear this to make fun of it. Or if you do, whatever, we're not going to support you.
Yeah.
But if you do it because you're supporting women.
Yeah.
And some men are wearing skirts to support women's rights.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I agree.
But yeah. So anyway, sorry to
No. I mean, I was going to say again, what was I going to say?
I think you were onto the real customer, the real women.
And I'm curious about how did you end up figuring out who your target audience is? Because, for instance, I see you on social media. Do you have ambassadors like Myrna or this other lady, Latoya?
Oh, yeah.
And so,
awesome.
And, they have such strong presence, especially Myrna. I follow her for a while, and she's become such a strong force in all things social media and just being real. And she's one of your ambassadors.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah, she's awesome.
How did you again figure out? Okay, this is the group or the audience that I should sell my products to.
Well, that happened. That I didn't figure it out. It figured it out.
Okay.
So I actually thought I only made products extra small to large, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
The very first year.
Okay.
Because I thought these are short little mini skirts.
Right.
And women who are like me,
correct.
And at the time was a pro triathlete in my early 30s. I'm like, we're going to get the 20-year-olds who are already fit and want to show off.
Right.
I was exactly wrong. It was 100% different. And I'm so glad it was, because I love this community so much more than the insecure 20-year-olds who we all have been at times in our life who are trying to figure it out. Somebody gave me this, and not to rip on 20-year-olds, you're not all insecure, but when you look back on your life, you'll be like, wow, I was really forming myself still in my 20s, right? And by the time you're in your 40s, you've gained so much life experience, but you're just kind of more mature, and you don't really care as much what people think, right? So someone told me we all see ourselves as 10 years younger than we are. So somebody in marketing told me this. And I thought, well, yeah, of course this makes sense. I'm 32 and I'm thinking 22-year-olds are going to buy it. But it wasn't 22-year-olds. It's 42-year-olds because they saw me and they were like, I want to have some of what she's having. And that's how I see myself. Right. Just with that kind of like decade, one decade less of energy and whatever. So it was pretty cool because they started asking like, can you please do extra large? Can you please do double extra large? Can you please do triple extra large? And I had originally said, I'm never doing black. I'm so sick of black. Everything's black. And they were like, can you please do black? Yeah. And I realized pretty early too, like you never say never. You have an open mind and you go where the energy is. Don't bang down doors that aren't opening. Yeah. Like, why would I try to hit on 20-year-olds? Like, let's hit on the people who want to wear the product. Yeah, I agree. So that's what we did. That woman is amazing. I am now 46. I'm way older than 10 years older than I was when I started. And it is such a fun place to be. The acceptance in this community is out of control. And that's why you see these posts. If you just search hashtag, skirt sports or real women move, which is one of the hashtags we use, you will just see these women of all shapes and sizes doing the most ridiculous things.
Yeah, I've seen your photo shoots are awesome.
Oh, the photo shoots are so fun. And, you mentioned Myrna and Latoya, and this is more also like a plus size population. Yeah. And they're black women who are underrepresented in certain ways, especially in endurance sports.
On the outdoors.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And so they're like breaking barriers right and left just by being themselves. Yeah. It's so cool. So that's our big thing is we're not asking you to be anyone you're not. We don't want that. You don't have to lose weight to get into our product. Yeah. People think that all the time. You don't have to try to become something you're not. Just be who you are with pure intentions of living a healthy life and you'll be happy.
And I think that's help you because I have this feeling that your customers feel that they're part of a tribe.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen here when sometimes you host events.
Did you see our ambassador retreat?
Yeah, I saw like a lot of people. You set up tents, and you guys hosted. Another event that I saw and I thought it was awesome is I think you did a 5K for moms and daughters.
Oh, yeah. It's more not moms and daughters, but for beginner runners, but they're paired with like a mentor. I see. So it might have seemed like, it's kind of that's a really cool program that we put on called Running Start. Yeah. It's a nonprofit now, but,
nice.
And they all graduated at a race we put on. So it's about creating events where you can bring like-minded people together who just open their arms. Like I did a post the other day about finish lines because what happened at our race this year is that everyone stayed and danced and partied and got goofy and ate cake. And there's no alcohol. We're just on a high at 10 a.m. Mm-hmm. And every time a runner came in who was towards the back of the pack, everyone formed like those human tunnel chains.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen posts about Okay.
And it was like no woman left behind. We're not going to shut down the finish line. And that's the mentality of Skirt Sports. We're not shutting anything down for you. We're including everybody who wants to be part of this. Whether you're super skinny and super fast, please come in. You don't have to be slow and back of the pack. Yeah. Like we want everybody who wants to just be a part of something a little bigger than themselves.
And by doing that, you just create this group of hardcore followers who translate into customers as well.
They do. And but here's the thing we always say is when I started, we were a clothing company, but now we're a community of women who are connected through common interests and shared values. masquerading as a clothing company.
Well, it's funny that you say that because that's kind of the path that I envisioned for Dig Deep. It started as a clothing company. Yes, I want to sell stuff, all that. But then I realized that like people don't necessarily buy clothes all year long. It can be pre-seasonal or depending on what kind of offering or products you offer. But people consume content every single day. And so that was one first insight that I had. It's like, okay. And then the other one was, and this was an evolution of, I want to start helping people. Because initially when I launched my business, it was more like, yeah, I want to, launch a cool brand and I want to sell stuff. Yeah, help people too. And now the idea of helping people, improving people's lives has become more important to me. So now the way I envision Dig Deep is to become a platform where people can find all kind of content that will help them start, get going, and finish what you started. So
I love that. And it can transcend triathlon. It can be for anything in life.
And that's one of the factors that made me think of this transition, because yes, it started as an endurance sports type of apparel brand, but people would then tell me my experience digging deep is battling cancer. My experience digging deep is dealing with being fired from my job, and so it can mean so many things to people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's interesting they say that. Like,
well, and I think for anybody who wants to start something, right, like a consumer goods product for company, for instance, whatever it is, but you have an idea for a product, great, pursue that. But if you don't have a bigger vision for how you're going to develop community around it, I don't know if you'll make it today. Like, I don't know, who knows what's going to happen in the future. Maybe we won't even be a product company. Maybe we'll be a community company. It's just, and that's where you have to have your eyes open and just your heart open to what could be.
Yeah.
Along the way, we've been in business 14 years and it's insane. And we've almost gone out of business a couple times. Like, stuff happens, right? The world changes, the economy crashes, manufacturing woes, like you name it.
Yeah.
So you just, if it's worth doing, keep doing it.
No, and what you said about focusing on your, this sounds pretty basic and obvious, but I think a lot of people don't think about it. Like, and this is a quote that I'm stealing from Tony Robbins. It's like, fall in love with your customer. Do not fall in love with your product. Fall in love with your customer, which means that, look, if the product that you launch that you think is the best thing, it's going to be the center of your success, you're wrong. It's got to be the customer. It's like Jeff Bezos. I was watching a video of him the other day where he says, customer obsession, and again, it's obvious, right? The customer's always right. The customer's first, but I don't know. Sometimes we don't think about that.
No, you forget because you're so tied to the bottom line.
Yeah.
And there is a nice dance there. I don't do the operational part of our business. I've got an incredible president who's been on board since 2006.
Wow.
And has held every job at Skirt Sports and grown as a person too. And I don't negotiate our pricing with factories.
Yeah.
I would suck at that and I would hate my job.
Yeah.
I go out and meet people and work on the product and have fun with that and keep developing community.
Yeah. Focus on your strengths.
Because I'm good at that. But when you're starting a business, you have to do it all.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah. And you have to do the stuff you suck at just well enough, or like remember that you actually knew what you were doing at the time, even though you can't remember why you made a decision or whatever. Like, trust yourself. That's actually a big point is when you start losing trust in yourself, that's a time to gauge whether you should continue going forward.
Yeah.
Or how do you regain that trust with yourself?
Yeah. I was reading this article about so much information about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, and one of the pillars is this idea of grit, especially the times when you just feel that it's not going to work, or people, other people, your family or your relatives or friends or whoever, they tell you, hey, maybe, so it's this idea that you're going to keep going even though things are not working the way you want it to right now. Is this belief, kind of like an obsession.
Yeah.
I see my vision, you know.
I mean, your brand could go anywhere.
Yeah.
You have a great name. It can be coaching. It can be life coaching.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be online events.
Yeah.
It can be, you know, whatever. You could put on events.
Yeah.
Whatever. There's so much you can do. Like, the world is so wide open these days.
Yeah.
It's just so cool.
Oh, my God. Okay, so time went by, of course, quickly.
This is too fun.
It was fun. I love to do a second part in the future, but Nicole, thank you very much for being on the show.
Is that it? We're done?
I know. Well, you have to go. We can keep talking.
I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm working on what we call the purchase orders for spring 2019. They're done. All our orders are in. So we're gonna hammer that out today. And I've got a meeting with our nonprofit on Sunday. So there's a lot of prep. There's a lot of stuff going on.
I love it.
But here's the balance. I'm also making time to go pick up my daughter for her last day of camp because she's gunning for the courage ribbon. And I really hope
that's awesome.
She did some things that scared her this week. She's only 6.
Yeah.
So we're teaching her what these things mean. But
yeah, of course.
You know, it's trying to fit it all in. So a conversation with you is an incredible way to kick off my day. Thank you.
No, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So for our listeners, I invite you to follow Nicole's adventures on Instagram. Her account is Nicole DeBoom. And you can also, of course, visit Skirt Sports. Their website is skirtsports.com. And, of course, if you're in the Boulder, Denver area, you should stop by their flagship store. You can pick some good stuff and then come over to the Boulder Running Company and say hi.
It's a twofer. You can see us both. Woo!
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it.